Edgar Allan Poe was born on January 17th, 1809. He ended up dying on October 17th, 1849. He was a very great writer, but his life was full of misery and death. I chose the quote, "I became insane with long intervals of horrible sanity," and I drew a raven because that was part of one of his greatest works, a black cat because that usually symbolizes that something bad was about to happen, and an eye because that was also part of one of his best stories,
What story?
The Telltale Heart.
Realize Edgar Allan Poe. He was born January 19th, 1809 until October 17th, 1849. One of his famous quotes was, "I became insane with long, horrible intervals of sanity." I have two things of symbolism with the raven and an eye, and the raven is from one of his famous poems, The Raven, and the eye symbolizes one of his famous stories called The Telltale Heart.
Edgar Allan Poe was a friend, an orphan, a widow, but most importantly, he was an author. I remember the day he lost his parents, and he had a very depressing expression among his face. It's as if the whole world had run away from him as a raven flying away. One time, Edgar Allan wrote, "I became insane with intervals of horrible sanity." Whilst writing a poem, at first I was confused, but I believe I understand. Almost all of the brainiacs of the past at one point were considered insane. Edgar is one of the most skilled poets of our time, and many believed he was insane. Let us hope that heaven releases him from the circle of torment he has lived through.
I've heard the news of Edgar Poe's death from a letter from the hospital. It's a shame no one knows how he dies. It just feels like it was just yesterday when Edgar and I were playing this swamp in the backyard. Now he's a dead author who wrote great stories. So, the stories I like the most is the story of the Raven. It makes it seem as if Edgar wrote the story on his past experiences. Most of Edgar's life has been full of loss and grief because all the people dear to his heart unfortunately died from tuberculosis. In The Raven, the old man lost his lover like Edgar lost his. I remember Edgar once saying, "Words have no power to impress the mind without the exquisite horror of reality." Edgar lived a tough life. No matter what I said, he would never accept my help. He would always go to his family for help. He moved to New York City, and his aunt let him stay with him and her daughter, Virginia, in their home. Edgar got a lost love interest in Virginia and married her on her 14th birthday. During the reception of the wedding, Edgar stood up and got everyone's attention by clicking the gas against the screen. He had an announcement to make, and he announced, "All that we see or seen is a dream within a dream." The whole room was speechless. He always had a way to make people speechless or surprise people with his words. That may be why so many people like the stories he made. I learned a lot from Edgar. Even though his life was not the best, still managed to put a little light in his life. When Edgar's story, The Raven, started getting popular, I did not see Edgar he's moving all over the place and I could not catch up with him. Tragedy hit Edgar's life in 1847. Virginia died of tuberculosis like most of his family. He started growing deeper and deeper into depression. He would usually come back to his home drunk and would ice himself around while his family lost for the whole day. He would say, "I remained too much inside my head, and ended up losing my mind." He kept growing more and more distant with his family. 2 years later, it was early morning when I got a letter from the hospital in Baltimore. The letter stated that Edgar Allan Poe was dead and he died from concussion of the brain. And his last words were, "Lord help my poor soul."
Edgar Allan Poe had a sad life. He lost his wife and his parents to TB. His parents died before he was 5. He was then fostered for the rest of his childhood life by my dad's friend John Allen. Edgar was an amazing writer, but he had really scary stories which led people to think he was crazy, but they were great to read. In The Raven, the theme is to never take people for granted because they are gone longer than they are here, which was him talking about Virginia. His last words were, "Lord help my poor soul." So did he commit suicide? He was never really that open to me. From Poe's life, I learned all good things come to an end. My dear friend is gone now, but he is with his family, so I will continue to bring him roses and alcohol on his birthday.
Edgar Allan Poe was the author of many famous poems, including The Raven, Telltale Heart, and Golden Book. Many people believe that Edgar Allan Poe was the creator of the modern horror story and the modern detective story. Many of his poems had death and insanity relating to the narrator. Poe was born in 1809, and his parents, David Poe and Elizabeth Arnold, were not around for long. Poe's dad, David, left Elizabeth before Edgar was born. Edgar, at the age of 2, lost his mom to tuberculosis or TB. Now a orphan, Poe was adopted by John Allen. Edgar went to the University of Virginia but never finished the school. Poe then moved out with his aunt and cousin Virginia, eventually marrying her. On her 14th birthday. At the age of 24, after a 10-year marriage, Virginia died of TB, the same disease as his mom. I remember the horrifying expression Poe had when he found out his wife had died. Though Poe had passed, we will never forget how he was one of the best writers of his time, and he still is. What you can gain from Poe's life is to never give up, even if things are hard. Like Poe, he kept going and doing what he loved, like writing. His life was filled with a lot of pain, but through that pain came experience. And maybe when he dies, or now that he is dead, he will find the light he has always deserved.